safe sits in the corner of the 43rd floor like it has always been there, like it grew out of the marble floor, and the floor grew out of the city, and the city grew out of something ancient and indifferent. It is 6 feet tall, 4 feet wide, weighs 2,200 pounds according to the specification sheet that nobody in this room has read except for one person, and she is standing near the elevator with her cleaning cart, waiting to be told she's in the wrong place. "Get her out of here," says Dominic Reeves, not to her, to the room, to the 17 people in expensive chairs who have spent the last 4 hours failing to open a safe that he told the world nobody could open. He said it on television. He said it at a press conference with a backdrop that cost more than most people make in a year. He said it with the particular confidence of a man who has never been wrong about anything because the people around him have never let him be wrong about anything. $100 million, he said, to anyone who can open my safe without the combination. $100 million live in front of witnesses in 30 days. Today is day 30. Her name is May Ardell Washington, and she is 53 years old, and she has been cleaning this building for 11 years, and she has never once been invited above the 12th floor until this morning when something happened that nobody in this room can explain yet, including Dominic Reeves, including his chief of security, including the 3 locksmiths from separate countries who flew in specifically for this contest and have all gone home with nothing. I said, "Get her out." Nobody moves. She doesn't move either. Her hands are folded in front of her, and her cart is parked beside her with the mop handle angled slightly to the left, the way she always parks it, out of habit, out of 11 years of moving through corridors where she has learned to take up exactly as little space as possible. She is wearing her uniform, blue shirt, gray pants, the laminated badge with her photo that makes her look like she is bracing for something, which she was, which she always is. The room watches Dominic Reeves watch her. He is 61 years old. He is worth, according to the most recent estimate, somewhere between $14 and $18 billion, depending on the quarter and his mood and how many of his companies are in the news, for good reasons versus bad ones. He has a face that photographers love because it is all angles, all certainty, the face of a man who decided very early on that the world was a game and he had figured out the rules. He is wearing a suit that costs more than May Washington makes in 4 months. He is looking at her the way he looks at things that don't belong where they are, with the calm, corrective attention of a man who believes disorder is temporary. "This is a private event," he says, to her this time, directly to her. "I don't know how you got up here. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not..." He pauses, choosing the word with the precision of someone who knows the cameras are recording and lawyers are watching. Appropriate. May Washington looks at him, just looks. Her expression does not change. It is not defiant, and it is not defeated, and it is not the expression of someone who has made a mistake. It is the expression of someone who is waiting for a room to catch up to what she already knows. "I'm here for the bet," she says. She says it quietly. She says it the way she says most things, without decoration, without apology, with the specific economy of language that comes from spending decades in rooms where your words are tolerated at best and scrutinized at worst. 3 words, 4 syllables. The room shifts. Dominic Reeves does something with his face that isn't quite a smile and isn't quite contempt, but lives in the neighborhood of both. He looks at the people around him, the lawyers and the publicist, and the head of security whose name is Gerard, and who is already moving toward May with the professional gentleness of someone trained to remove people without creating incidents. "Ma'am," Gerard says. "The bet was open," May says. She does not look at Gerard. She looks at Dominic Reeves. "Public contest, your words, anyone, 30 days, no combination." She pauses. Today is day 30. Somewhere in the room, a phone comes up, then another. Go back. You have to go back to understand what is happening here, because what is happening here did not begin this morning, did not begin with a cleaning cart near an elevator on the 43rd floor of a building that May Washington has spent 11 years making spotless for people who have never learned her last name. What is happening here began 41 years ago in a basement workshop in a neighborhood that Dominic Reeves has driven through exactly once, by accident, and immediately instructed his driver to correct. The neighborhood was called Pinewood then. It is called something else now because neighborhoods like that get called something else eventually. The names changed, like the rents changed, incrementally at first and then all at once. But in 1983, it was Pinewood, and the basement belonged to a man named Curtis Washington, who was May's father and who had a gift that the world did not particularly want to reward. Curtis Washington could open anything. Not as a criminal, not as someone who took things that didn't belong to him. As a craftsman, as a student of mechanisms, as a man who had read every manual and reverse-engineered every lock he could get his hands on because the way things worked, the pure, beautiful logic of tumblers and pins and tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch, was the closest thing to joy he had found in a world that offered him limited options for joy. He had a wall in his basement workshop covered in locks, every kind, every era. He had notebooks, 14 of them, filled with diagrams in his careful, precise handwriting. He had a gift. What Curtis Washington did not have was a license. He had applied 3 times. The licensing board for security consultants in their state was, in 1983, a body that kept careful records about many things, but not about the specific reasons applications were denied, which meant that the denials arrived without explanation and without recourse, and without any mechanism for Curtis Washington to understand what he had done wrong, because he had not done anything wrong. He had passed the written exam with the highest score recorded that year. He had provided references. He had submitted everything required. 3 times, 3 denials, no reasons given. He taught May instead. He taught her on weekends, starting when she was 7, because she had his hands and his patience and the same instinct for listening to mechanisms that he had, the ability to feel through her fingertips what other people needed instruments to detect. He taught her the theory first, the physics of it, the way a lock is essentially a conversation between geometry and pressure, and the only way to join that conversation is to listen. Then he taught her the practice. Then he watched her surpass him. By the time May was 12, she could open anything in his workshop. By 14, she had learned things he hadn't taught her, developed techniques from first principles that he'd read about only in papers written by engineers who worked for governments. By 16, a locksmith in their neighborhood, a white man named Bertrand, who had worked with Curtis on 3 occasions and respected him genuinely, offered May a part-time job. She worked there for 2 years. She was good. She was better than good. Then Bertrand retired and sold the shop, and the new owner did not retain May. He told her it wasn't personal. He told her this while not making eye contact and using words like direction and rebranding and demographic. She was 18. She applied to 4 other locksmith shops over the following year. She received 2 interviews and no offers. Curtis Washington died the year May turned 22. Heart attack, he was 51. He left her the notebooks, the wall of locks, the workshop, and a sentence she has carried every day since. He said it to her 2 weeks before he died, not knowing it was 2 weeks before he died, said it during an ordinary Saturday in the basement when she had just opened a Medico in under 40 seconds, and he was watching her with the particular pride of a man who has given someone something that cannot be taken away. He said, "The lock doesn't care who you are, only what you know." May Washington thinks about that sentence now, standing near the elevator on the 43rd floor, watching Gerard approach and watching Dominic Reeves perform his certainty for the cameras and the lawyers and the 17 people in expensive chairs who have decided, without looking at her hands, without asking a single question, that she is in the wrong place. "The bet was public," she says again. "Your legal team put the terms online. I read them, twice." A pause. "I have a copy." She reaches into the front pocket of her uniform shirt. She produces a folded piece of paper. She unfolds it with the careful movements of someone who has handled paper carefully her whole life, because careful was how you kept things. She holds it out, not to Gerard, to Dominic Reeves. He doesn't take it, but his lawyer does. A woman named Claire, 40s, gray suit, the expression of someone who has spent a career cleaning up after rich men's large proclamations. Claire takes the paper, reads it. Her expression does not change in the way that expressions refuse to change when they really want to. She hands it back to May. "The terms are valid," Claire says, to Reeves, not to May. "The contest was open, no exclusions by..." Another pause, another careful word choice. "Credential or background, anyone." The room is very quiet. Dominic Reeves looks at May Washington with an expression that is shifting, that is working through several things at once. That is the expression of a man who is beginning to understand that something is happening that he cannot control with the usual instruments. He looks at her uniform, her badge, her cart. He looks at her hands, which are resting now at her sides, which are the hands of someone who has spent decades in physical labor and also in precise, practiced, infinitely patient work. "You clean offices," he says. May says nothing. "You clean offices," he says again, and there is something in the repetition that he means as a verdict, as a complete sentence, as a sufficient answer to a question nobody asked. "And you want me to believe?" "I don't want you to believe anything," May says. Quiet, steady, every word measured. "I want to open your safe, that's all." Someone in the back of the room makes a sound. It might be a laugh suppressed. It might be something else. More phones are up now. 6 of the 17 people in expensive chairs are recording this, and they have not been asked to stop, and no one is asking them to stop, because everyone in this room is aware that the terms of the contest included full transparency and documentation, and Dominic Reeves himself insisted on that because he believed it would be the record of his triumph, and he is only now beginning to understand that records are neutral about whose triumph they document. "Let her try," says a man near the window. His name is James Okafor, and he is an investor, and he is the only person in this room who has been watching May Washington's hands since she walked in. And he has been doing the quiet math of someone who recognizes that a person can hold knowledge in their hands the way other people hold it in degrees on a wall. "Dominic, let her try. You said anyone." Reeves looks at Okafor. He looks at the room. He looks at the cameras. He looks at Claire, who gives him the microscopic nod of someone indicating that the legally safest path is forward. He looks at the safe. It is a Sargent & Greenleaf 833C series, custom modified with additional security features designed by a firm in Zurich that specializes in vault security for institutions and governments and private individuals whose assets require the kind of protection that requires inventing new categories of protection. Dominic Reeves paid $340,000 for the safe and an additional $180,000 for the Zurich modifications. His security team, a former director from a 3-letter agency, told him it was the most secure residential or commercial safe in private hands in North America. He told Reeves this over dinner at a restaurant where the tasting menu cost $800 per person. Reeves tipped 20%. He looks at May Washington. "Fine," he says. The word lands in the room with the flatness of a man who is not worried, who is performing not worried, because he has spent 61 years learning that performance is 9/10 of reality in the rooms where reality is decided. "Fine, try." May Washington walks toward the safe. She walks the way she walks through corridors at 2 in the morning when she is the only person left in a building, when the building belongs to her, the way spaces belong to the people who maintain them, completely and temporarily, and without any documentation of the fact. She walks without hurrying. She walks with her hands coming up slightly from her sides, anticipatory, the way a musician's hands rise towards an instrument. She stops in front of the safe. She does not touch it yet. She looks at it the way her father taught her to look first, with your eyes, with everything your eyes can gather, before your hands begin their different kind of seeing. She reads it, the seams, the dial, the handle, the way the light catches the corners. The modifications are visible if you know what to look for, and she knows what to look for because Sargent & Greenleaf 833C series has been manufactured since 1987, and she has read the technical specifications for every version, and the Zurich firm, whose name is Hartmann Security System, published a white paper in 2019 about their approach to layered security mechanisms, and May Washington found that white paper on a Tuesday night 11 months ago, 3 weeks before Dominic Reeves announced his contest, while she was doing what she does on Tuesday nights, which is read. Because here is something the room does not know about May Washington. Here is the thing that would scramble the comfortable calculus of everyone sitting in those expensive chairs, if they knew it, and they do not know it because they have not asked. Because when a woman in a cleaning uniform walks into your room, the shape of your curiosity goes in one direction and not another. May Washington has read more technical literature on mechanical security systems than most licensed security professionals will read in a career. She reads in the time between jobs, on transit, in the corners of break rooms where she is usually alone because that is how it has worked out. She has studied, without formal instruction, without credential, without anyone's permission or acknowledgement, the engineering principles behind every major safe design currently in commercial production. She has Curtis's notebooks, all 14 of them, and she has added 6 of her own. She has never been given a job that uses this knowledge. She has never been asked whether she has it. She kneels in front of the safe. The room watches. The phones record. Dominic Reeves stands with his arms crossed, with the expression of a man observing an interesting formality before the correct outcome arrives. He is thinking, at this moment, about the press release his team drafted for the close of the contest, the one about the unassailable nature of his investment in security infrastructure, the one about the future of private asset protection. He is not thinking about May Washington's hands. He will think about her hands for the rest of his life. She places both palms flat against the door of the safe first, not the dial, the door, reading the temperature differential, the micro vibrations, the way the metal carries information if you have spent decades learning to receive it. Then she moves to the dial. Her right hand takes it with a touch so light it looks like she is barely making contact, and the room instinctively leans forward. Silence. Not the silence of waiting. The silence of watching something rare, something that exists outside the usual categories of performance and credential and proof. Something that announces itself through the quality of the attention it demands. Even Dominic Reeves, who has decided this is theater, finds himself unable to look away. Her hand moves. Barely. The dial turns in increments too small for most people to see. Her eyes are closed. She is not reading the mechanism visually anymore. She is reading it the way her father taught her, through contact, through the translation of metal's language into sensation, through the accumulated knowledge of 46 years of loving the interior logic of things that most people only see from the outside. The room holds its breath. 8 minutes and 40 seconds after she kneels down, something clicks. It is not a loud sound. It is the sound of a thing yielding to being correctly understood. It is the sound of geometry fulfilling its purpose. It is the sound of a tumbler system recognizing what it was built to recognize and responding accordingly. May Washington puts her hand on the handle. She looks up, and for the first time since she walked into this room, she looks directly into Dominic Reeves's eyes. And then she turns the handle, and the door swings open. The room makes a sound that is not quite anything. Not applause yet, not language yet. It is the sound of 17 people's understanding, reorganizing around new information, the sound of assumptions failing, the sound of a world that arranged itself a certain way, cracking along a seam it didn't know it had. Dominic Reeves stands very still. His face goes through several things. You can watch it happen if you are one of the 6 people recording and you have the presence of mind to keep your phone steady, which 2 of them do. And which means that what happens to Dominic Reeves's face in this moment is documented with the clarity that he himself insisted upon, the transparency he required of this contest, because he was certain it would serve him. He goes through disbelief. He goes through the specific calculation of a man trying to find the error, the trick, the explanation that restores the order. He goes through something that might be, in another context, in another man, the beginning of awe. He arrives at a place that has no name yet for him, a place he has never been, where something he was certain of has turned out to be wrong in front of witnesses, and the witnesses include people whose respect he has spent 61 years purchasing. James Okafor near the window says quietly, "Dominic." Just that. Just his name. The way you say someone's name when you want them to understand that what just happened is real. Claire, the lawyer, is already doing something on her phone. The terms of the contest are very clear. She drafted them. She is aware in this moment of exactly what the terms require. May Washington stands up. She is 53 years old, and her knees tell her about it, the way they have been telling her about it for the last 3 years of kneeling on tile and hard floors. But she stands straight, and she folds her hands in front of her again with the particular stillness of someone who has never needed anyone's reaction to confirm what she already knew. She looks at the open safe. Inside, clearly visible against the dark velvet of the custom interior, are stacked documents. A ceremonial first dollar bill in a frame. A photograph. The things that rich men put inside safes are often not primarily about money. They are about proof of trajectory, about documents that say I began here and arrived here and here is the evidence. Mae Washington looks at these things briefly and then looks away because they are not hers, and she has never been comfortable looking at things that are not hers. The terms, she says, not loudly, to Claire, who has already confirmed what she already knows. The terms say certified transfer within 48 hours. Yes, Claire says, they do. Dominic Reeves has not moved. He is in the location where understanding arrives later than the fact, where the 61 years of never being wrong in front of witnesses has not prepared him for the physical experience of being wrong, of having the wrong live in his body, as a sensation, as a fullness in his chest that is not pride. He looks at Mae Washington with the expression of a man who is, for perhaps the first time, actually seeing a person he is looking at, and what he sees is someone who has stood in this exact position, the position of being right in a room that preferred her wrong many times before, in rooms where there were no cameras, where there was no $100 million, where there was only the fact of being right and the indifference of everyone who needed her to be wrong. How, he says. It is not the arrogant question. It is the real one, the small one, the human one. Mae considers him for a moment. She does not owe him an answer. She knows she doesn't owe him an answer. She gives him one anyway because of something her father said, one of the many things her father said that have outlasted everything else, which is that knowledge withheld to punish ignorance only guarantees more ignorance. Your safe is a Sargent and Greenleaf 833C, she says. The Hartman modifications added a secondary relocker system and a thermal scrambler for the main dial, which changes the friction coefficient based on temperature. Most people try to work against that. You don't work against it. You read it. You let the mechanism tell you what the temperature is doing and you adjust. She pauses. My father taught me that. He taught me when I was 7. He applied 3 times for his license to do professionally what I just did. They never told him why he was denied. The room is so quiet that the HVAC system becomes audible, the low breath of a building maintaining its interior climate, indifferent to the humans and their reckonings. His name was Curtis Washington, Mae says. He died in 1994. He was the best locksmith I have ever known, and he spent his working life without official recognition of that fact because the systems that grant recognition were not designed to recognize him. She looks at Dominic Reeves steadily. You said anyone. He couldn't have been anyone. He tried to be anyone, and the door didn't open. For him. She stops. But he taught his daughter. And you said anyone. Dominic Reeves looks at the open safe. He looks at Mae Washington. He looks at the room full of people who are looking at him and looking at their phones and looking at the space between this moment and the next. The space where a person decides what the thing that just happened means and what to do about it. He is 61 years old. He has been wrong before, in private, in the ways that anyone is wrong in private, in the ways that never had to be absorbed in front of 17 people and 6 recording phones. He is trying, you can see him trying, to locate himself in this new geography, in the map of a moment where the woman he told to leave is the woman who did the thing he told the world no one could do. He looks at his lawyer. He looks at James Okafor. He looks at Mae Washington. The transfer will be made, he says. His voice is different. Not smaller, something else, something that sounds unexpectedly like the first honest thing he has said in this room. Within 48 hours, as per the terms. Mae nods. Once. The nod of someone who expected this outcome because they read the terms carefully, and they knew what they knew, and they have never needed anyone to be generous to them, only to be accurate. She turns toward her cart. She straightens the mop handle, which is still at the angle she always keeps it, slightly left, out of habit, out of respect for the space of others. She begins to move toward the elevator. Ms. Washington, James Okafor says. She stops, turns. He is looking at her with the expression of someone who has questions that are going to take longer than this moment to ask. He is a man who made his money understanding value before others understood it, who has spent 30 years walking into rooms and seeing what the room missed. And he is aware that he has just watched something that has implications beyond this room, beyond this morning, beyond $100 million, and a custom Zurich-modified safe that opened for a woman with a cleaning cart and a wall of her dead father's notebooks. "Would you be open," he says carefully, "to a conversation about your work? Your actual work?" May Washington looks at him for a moment with the expression of someone who has been asked questions like this before, in forms that did not lead anywhere, in forms that were curiosity dressed up as opportunity, in forms that were interest dressed up as charity. She has 46 years of calibrating the distance between a question and what the person asking it will do with her answer. She reads James Okafor the way she reads Locks, through contact, through what he is telling her without knowing he is telling her. "I'm available," she says, "Thursday afternoons." She turns back toward the elevator. The cartwheels make a quiet sound on the marble. The elevator opens. She moves through the space between the room and the elevator with the same particular quality of presence she has always moved through spaces, completely, unhurriedly, occupying the exact amount of room she requires and no more. The elevator doors close. The room remains in the geography of the moment, in the new map, the one that existed before, but that no one in this room had been reading correctly. The safe stands open in the corner. Its contents are visible. Its 2,200 pounds of certainty have been rearranged into something else, something that will require a different word than certainty, something closer to evidence. Evidence of what can live inside a person who was never given the room to show it. Evidence of what knowledge does when it is finally given a door that opens. Dominic Reeves stands in his 43rd floor office for a long time after she leaves. He stands with his arms no longer crossed, with his hands at his sides in a posture that he doesn't usually inhabit, that is less certain in its geometry than his usual posture. That is the posture of a man who is doing the work of updating what he knows. His publicist comes to him after a while and says something about the statement they need to make, about managing the narrative, about framing. He listens. He nods. He says he'll handle the statement himself, which is something he never does. The statement he releases 18 hours later does not manage anything. It is not written in the language of management. It is 17 sentences long, and the 16th sentence says, "I was wrong about who could solve this problem. I've been wrong in similar ways for a long time. The money will transfer by the end of business tomorrow. Her name is May Ardell Washington. Please learn it." The internet does what the internet does, which is respond to things enormously and then move on. But in the moving on, it leaves traces. It leaves the name May Ardell Washington in places where it hadn't been before, in conversations where it wouldn't have arrived any other way. And some of those traces matter in ways that take longer than a news cycle to understand. James Okafor meets with May on a Thursday afternoon, then on several Thursday afternoons. What develops from those meetings is a story for another time, the beginning of something that is not yet complete, and that therefore cannot be told with the authority that this moment deserves. What can be said is that Curtis Washington's notebooks, 14 volumes of careful, precise handwriting about the interior logic of mechanisms, are scanned and digitized and eventually archived in a manner that means they will not be lost again. The transcript of the 43rd floor, the 6 recordings from 6 phones, circulates in communities that have been watching for exactly this kind of evidence, for exactly as long as people have needed evidence that what they know about the distance between credential and knowledge, between recognition and worth, between the doors that open and the people left standing outside them, is true. They watch May Washington kneel before the safe. They watch her hands on the dial. They watch the door swing open, and they watch Dominic Reeves's face, and they watch the room shift on its axis, and they send it to each other with messages that say variations of the same thing, which is, "Did you see this?" They did. They did see this. And here is where this story stops being May Washington's story exclusively and starts being the story of everyone who has watched someone decide who belongs in a room before asking what they know. It is the story of Curtis Washington and his 3 denied applications and his 14 notebooks and his Saturday basement workshops and his daughter's hands that learned everything he had to teach. It is the story of every license denied without explanation, every interview that ended in the wrong direction, every room where the cleaning cart was the first thing seen and the last thing looked past. It is the story of every person who carries expertise in their body like a private country, who has learned to live in the space between what they know and what anyone will let them do with what they know. There are so many safes. That is what this story is also about. There are so many safes, designed by people who decided who would get to open them, constructed on the assumption that only certain hands would ever reach them, protected by a confidence in the orderly geography of worth and credential, and visible evidence of status. And there are so many people in the corridor outside those rooms, pushing cleaning carts and carrying decades of knowledge and waiting for someone to say, anyone. We said anyone. Mae Washington went home on the evening of that 30th day, and she sat in the kitchen of the apartment she has lived in for 19 years, and she made herself the same meal she has made on difficult days for most of her adult life, which is the meal her mother made, which involves cornbread and two other things that are specific and particular and not relevant to this telling, except that they mattered, that the specificity mattered, that eating something your mother made when the world has been. The world is a form of continuity that money cannot purchase, and prejudice cannot interrupt. She sat at her kitchen table, and she thought about her father. She thinks about her father most days, but that day she thought about him with a precision that matched the precision of his notebooks, that matched the precision of his hands on a lock, that matched the careful way he told her what he knew and made sure she knew it completely, not as a gift. He never called it a gift, but as something she had earned by listening, by learning, by being willing to sit in a basement on Saturdays when the rest of the world was somewhere else. The lock doesn't care who you are, only what you know. She carried what he knew. She carried it through 11 years of corridors in a building where no one knew her last name. She carried it through the closed doors and the wrong floor elevators and the "are you sure you're supposed to be here's" and the "please wait" in the lobbies. She carried it like you carry something that belongs to you completely, quietly, without display, until the day comes when the door is there and the question is open and the terms say anyone. And, you have always known exactly how this conversation between geometry and pressure is supposed to go. You put your hands on the thing, you listen, you let the mechanism tell you what it knows, you open it. Have you ever held something nobody recognized? Have you ever walked past a door that everyone told you was meant for someone else? Have you ever stood in a corridor with your cart and your knowledge and your father's voice in your ear and thought about what it would mean to finally reach the thing you have always been able to open? Think about who taught you what you know. Think about who taught the person who taught you and who denied them the room to teach anyone except you, in a basement, on Saturdays, for free, out of love, and the refusal to let a gift die at the border of someone else's assumption. Think about how many Curtis Washingtons there have been. Think about how many basements, how many notebooks, how many daughters and sons who carry expertise in their hands, like a language nobody in the official rooms has ever thought to ask them to speak. The world is full of safes that certain people built and certain other people have always known how to open. The question that this moment leaves, the question that Mae Ardell Washington and her father's 14 notebooks leave, is not about locks. It has never been about locks. It is about who gets to be in the room. It is about what we lose when we decide, before asking, before listening, before putting our own assumptions down, long enough to actually see a person standing in front of us that we already know who belongs there. Dominic Reeves learned something on the 43rd floor. What he does with it is still being written. James Okafor and his Thursday conversations are still being written. The archive of Curtis Washington's notebooks is still being read. Mae Washington is still, because none of this ends cleanly or completely, still cleaning offices 2 days a week while the other situation develops. Because rent is a fact, and money takes time, and the world does not reorganize overnight just because a safe opened, and a statement was released, and 6 phones recorded the day a room was wrong, about who could do the thing that needed doing. But the door is open. That part is done. That part is written and witnessed and documented and true. The door is open, and everyone who needs to know it is open knows it now. And that is not nothing. It is not everything. But it is the kind of thing that cannot be undone. The kind of thing that lives in the record with the same permanence as the denied applications and the 3 failed licenses and the 14 notebooks waiting in a basement for someone to finally read them in a room where it counted. The door is open. She opened it. Her father taught her how. His name was Curtis Washington, and he was the best locksmith nobody was ever allowed to hire, and his daughter was the best locksmith in the room on the 43rd floor on the 30th day of a contest that a billionaire announced to the world because he was certain that he knew, better than anyone, exactly how safe his safe was. He was wrong. And now we know what being wrong looks like when it happens in front of witnesses. We know what it looks like when a room has to update itself in real time around a truth it didn't invite in. We know what dignity looks like when it doesn't need the room's permission to be true. We know what knowledge looks like when it has been carried for 46 years through corridors where nobody asked about it until the day somebody had to. We know her name. It is May Ardell Washington. Learn it.